So what I'd like to talk to you about tonight, and then to invite your comment and thoughts, is some work that we've been doing for a while now about how we might seek together to refresh our diocesan vision. This work has come out of meetings that I've had with all the different deanery chapters around the diocese. It also comes out of the Zoom conversations that we had about diocesan finance last year. And we've been talking about it too in Bishops' Council, with the Bishops' staff team, with rural deans and area deans and lay deans, and with the support services team at Flourish House. And what I'd like to do this evening is to share with you where our thinking has progressed to so far, and then to invite your participation in taking it further. So we have, as a vision for the Diocese of Bath and Wells, the vision of living and telling the story of Jesus. And as I've been saying, as I've been going around chapters and in various places, I like this vision very much. It's great because it has verbs in it. It mentions the name of Jesus, and it's an aspiration that we can spend all our lives living towards. And it's a vision I hope we'll keep. I hope we'll keep it because it's a good vision. And also, as we know from phrases such as every little helps, we all know that's associated with Tesco's because they've kept on with the same vision for the last 25 plus years. And I don't think it does any organization any good to keep on chopping and changing around with its vision. So for living and telling the story of Jesus, for me, I really hope we'll stick with it. But when we look below the vision, I have to say, I think there's good stuff below the vision, but it's not, frankly, in language that many of us use every day, such as putting mission and evangelism at the heart of everything we do. Laudable though that might be, it's not exactly language which trips easily off the tongue. Neither is it, in some ways, does it have the kind of focus that I think we need to have in order to enable us to move forward together. So we could say that our current approaches are about looking outward. Well, that's good. About having mission but not maintenance, equally good. Everyone having a part to play, that's really good. But I do wonder whether a bit more specificity might help us in developing our vision together. When I was with Diocesan Synod last November, I was talking about the experience of being with chapters and in the Zoom conversations, and was saying, for me, at this point in the story of the Diocese of Bath and Wells, I think there's a real call for us to step out in faith, to step out of the boat. And what I hope is that we can think together about what's going to be most important in doing that, so that we can go forward together. I was also mentioning to the Diocesan Synod that one of my favorite Zambian proverbs, well, frankly, it's taken from a short list of one, so it would have to be my favorite, goes like this: when we hoe a field, we all start in one corner and go one way. At the moment, as I've gone around the diocese, it does seem to me that we don't have a really obvious coherence of our vision. We have lots of different people doing lots and lots of really good things. But if we could have a bit more coherence, that might help us all really understand and know where we're going, so we can step out towards the future in faith and hope. Now, I need to caveat what I've just said by saying a number of things. Please don't for a moment think that what I'm suggesting is some kind of one-size-fits-all vision for our diocese. What works in Bath will be different to what works in Compton Dundon, to what works in Yeovil and in every other place of the diocese. We know that we have many different contexts, and that what only really works is what's right for the place where you are. So it can't be a one-size-fits-all activity. I hope too that we'll be asset-based. That's to say that in a time of challenge and difficulty, as perhaps we feel we're in right now, there can be a temptation to start by bemoaning what we don't have. In my view, that never really gets us anywhere. We can only ever move forward by speaking out of a narrative of what we do have, not what we lack. So knowing we're a people of skills and abilities, trusted by our communities, with a rich heritage, wonderful buildings, and the faith of God alive and beating in our hearts. As I've said a bit about context already, any vision we have must be capable of being locally owned. And it must come from all parts of our diocese. We celebrate so many different people here with so many different skills and abilities, people and parishes, schools and chaplaincies. We have a wonderful group of people working in our support services. We have our bishops' council and synods. We have our bishops and archdeacons. How can we all together articulate the way forward that we'd like to go? So really tonight is about me asking of you a number of things in the coming weeks and months as we think about vision. First of all, I ask of you your prayer. Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. So my primary ask of you is, as we think about this work, please would you pray for it? Ask God to show us the right vision to have, the right way we should work together and step forward. I invite you to think and be in conversation with the people around you. Have some discussions, maybe debates, because we really want to get this right. And getting it right means that we need to listen to as many people as possible, right across the diversity of our diocese. And some consultation too would be really good. Now, and perhaps this is where I need to step out in faith. It seems to me that as we seek to identify a vision, I could ask you all what you thought would be some good ideas about this. And you'd come back with a brilliant range of responses. But they'd probably be so varied and so good and so extensive that it would be really difficult to pick anything out of them. And frankly, we'd probably just experience them as noise. So what I've done out of listening around the diocese to many people already, and I want us to extend that listening far more, is to identify 4, what I'm kind of calling stakes in the sand, ideas that I've had about how our vision might move forward, that I hope together we can look at, examine, talk about, think about, amend, change, maybe discard altogether if we come up with better ideas. But they're there for us to have almost as a beginning to our discussions. And I hope that together we'll develop them much more. So as we think about our vision of living and telling the story of Jesus, let me share with you what for me are, I think, the 4 elements that I'd really like us to major on as we go forward together. So I've got 4 areas of focus. And my first area of focus is of inviting us all to value and cherish the people that we already have, so that together we can live out our calling to be salt and light in the places in which we live. Going back to that asset-based approach, as I've gone round the diocese, I'm just convinced that our communities and parishes and schools and chaplaincies have just amazing and wonderful people who are committed, blessed with a rich variety of skills, trusted by local communities, inheritors of a rich history. And I think we have to start by celebrating who we are and what we've already got. And I think if this were our first objective, under it, we could nest a whole series of things that are important to valuing and cherishing the people that we've got. So, for example, one thing we might put underneath this would be, how do we really train and support our church wardens and church officers so that they know that they're being really well supported in the tasks that we're asking them to do? How do we go about making sure that our clergy's well-being is as good as it can possibly be? How might we have a buildings policy which helped us to look after the amazing heritage of buildings that we have? That's just 3 ideas I've come up with just now. So that's the first area I'd like us to think about. Now, the second area is this. As I go around the diocese, what I see is that sometimes our traditional congregations are attractive to children and families and young people, and praise be when that happens. But that's not always the case. And we're all conscious that many of our traditional congregations are getting older and are getting smaller. Yet we also see that when we take what you might call the substance of our faith and offer it in slightly different forms, maybe at a different time or in a different format or in a different place, then lots of people come almost out of the woodwork, as it were, and express interest in growing in spirituality and understanding of the faith that we share. They've never come on a normal Sunday morning, but they will come at other times, and that's especially so for children and young people and families. So I wonder whether a second focus of our strategy, our vision going forward, should be to seek to establish new worshipping communities, maybe new congregations or new communities altogether linked to our parishes, so that new people can encounter the faith of Jesus Christ. How might that work in our different communities? The third area of focus I'd like us to think about is how we go about ministry. If you read a letter like the letter to the Ephesians, it's clear that when the church began, the ministry of the church, it was assumed, would be undertaken by a wide variety of different people exercising particular gifts and skills. Whereas we've frankly ended up to a large extent with a Victorian model, which has kind of assumed that the vicar will do almost everything. And not only is this a crying waste of different people's skills and talents, it's increasingly leaving our clergy tired and overstretched and liable to burnout, particularly where they're caring for more than one parish, and some, as we know, caring for 5 or 6 or 7. I'm so glad to have come to a diocese which has really emphasized the idea of shared local ministry that sees the skills of many different people brought to play into the life of our churches for the flourishing of us all. I'd really like us to explore much more deeply and much more seriously how we could extend shared local ministry as a better way of being church for the 21st century. And then my final focus that I'd really like us to have around our vision is of how we can really speak about faith as a journey onto which we are invited and experience it as a journey to which we're invited. If I say to you, come on an exciting journey, and we're going to sit in the terminus at King's Cross, it's not a very exciting prospect. But if I say, come on an exciting journey, we're going to take the Northern Line and we're going to go up to Skye on the train. Wow, that would be a journey, an encounter to think about. We're quite good in our churches at inviting people to go in toe deep in exploring faith. How might we extend that and say, if you've gone in toe deep, Why don't we try going in ankle, knee, or perhaps even further into the experiences of the faith that we have? How can we all keep growing in faith so that this is something that's alive and flourishing within us? Because none of us have arrived at the destination. So those are my 4 areas of focus. And what we would like to do would be to invite you to have conversations about these where you are, to see how they land, to see what different people might think about them. Are these the right areas that we should be concentrating on as we take our vision forward? And we'd love to hear back from you in feedback. So next Monday, we'll be sending out all round the diocese a little electronic form to capture what everybody thinks. It's got a little preamble page like this. And then for each of the 4 areas, we'd really like to know the answers to 2 questions. So, for example, in terms of valuing and cherishing the people we already have, the questions we've got would be, what does this look like in your context, where you are? Do you have stories of encouragement or challenge to tell? And the second question is, what might good success or impact look like and feel like in relation to valuing and cherishing the people we have where you are? So we're going to send that form out. I'm really invite you to think about it with others, and then send it back to us so we can collate all the different views of everybody and piece together a common picture that we hope will emerge.